not again. My neighbor Catherine locked every deadbolt and called 911. Through the door, Dad kept shouting about his sick daughter needing specialized care. When the police arrived, their flashlight beams sent me into a panic. I pressed my palms against my eyes, tears streaming through my fingers. The officers exchanged glances. One wrote something in his notepad while Dad explained my genetic light sensitivity disorder. He showed them medical papers, speaking calmly about rare conditions and specialized home treatment. The crying girl under the table who couldn't look at them directly seemed to prove his point. I tried explaining through my tears, but keeping my eyes covered while speaking made me appear evasive. Every time I lowered my hands to make eye contact, the pain forced them back up. The officers asked why I ran away if I was receiving medical care. Dad mentioned my history of confusion during episodes. The paramedic who examined me faced a choice. My vitamin D levels were dangerously low. My bones showed signs of malnutrition. Old fractures had healed wrong. But Dad stood nearby, casually mentioning he knew the paramedic supervisor from church. The medical report would need to be very specific about what was documented. I had to decide quickly whether to mention Emma. Dad was already telling officers about her worse condition, how she needed immediate return to her controlled environment. If I stayed quiet, maybe I could establish my own safety first. But Emma was dying in that darkness. I chose to describe her symptoms using medical terms Michael had taught me. The officers' expressions changed. Now I sounded coached. Child services arrived just as Dad's lawyer friend pulled up in an expensive car. My eyes had started bleeding from the light exposure, thin red tears that the paramedic carefully documented. Dad rushed over with false concern, explaining how this proved my genetic condition. The symptoms matched his fabricated medical records perfectly. Dad broke down sobbing on the front lawn. Several neighbors gathered around, comforting him as he wailed about his sick babies. They glared at Catherine, whispering about kidnapping. Someone mentioned calling their pastor. Dad's performance was flawless. A grieving father whose disturbed daughter had been lured away during a medical crisis. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Dad knew he'd helped me escape. The punishment would be living in the garage. Youth pastor Tim was trying to calm Dad down, but it wasn't working. Michael was scared. I'd promised to protect him if he helped me, but now he was facing Dad's rage alone. The hospital exam revealed bones like an elderly woman's. Severe vitamin deficiencies had damaged my organs. Infected wounds covered my legs from stumbling in darkness. The nurse photographed everything, thinking she was documenting abuse. She didn't know these images would later support Dad's genetic disorder story. Every symptom matched the fake condition he'd researched. Hospital social workers needed Dad's insurance information to approve treatment. He controlled what procedures I could receive, delaying authorization while demanding second opinions. The bone density medication I desperately needed waited behind his signature. Each day without it caused more damage, which he documented as the progression of my genetic condition. Dad's lawyer played a recorded phone call from Mom. Her tearful voice claimed I'd had episodes like this after grandfather died. Complete fabrication, but it sounded believable. She described me building elaborate stories when stressed, unable to distinguish reality from fantasy. The social worker took notes about my possible psychological issues. Within hours, Dad posted in the community Facebook group about my kidnapping during a medical crisis. Screenshots spread through our small town. Prayer chains started. Fundraisers were suggested for his family's medical bills. He became the sympathetic father dealing with a disturbed daughter's rebellion against necessary treatment. My attempts to contact Emma were flagged by hospital staff. They noted my fixation on my sister as concerning behavior. When I insisted she needed help, they added it to my psychiatric evaluation. Everything I did to save her made me appear more unstable. Dad had thought of everything. The pain medication for my fractures made me slur during the official CPS interview. This is absolutely horrifying. The dad's twisted logic about light and women is making my stomach turn. Cutting their hair with kitchen scissors and making them wear garbage bags. I struggled to keep my thoughts clear while explaining years of abuse. The interviewer kept asking me to speak up, but the substances made everything fuzzy. My credibility crumbled with each mumbled response. The community center director initially promised to support my case. He'd seen our family's strange dynamics during homeschool events, but his wife reminded him that Dad served as head of the facilities committee. Their operating budget depended on his approval. The director withdrew his offer to testify, citing concerns about taking sides in family matters. Local Facebook filled with prayers for our family. My former teacher posted about how I'd always seemed troubled, but the church secretary privately messaged Catherine, saying she was praying for the truth to come out. Small cracks appeared in Dad's perfect image, but not enough to matter. Dad claimed Catherine had altered my medical records to frame him. He pointed to intake forms I'd signed but couldn't read due to light sensitivity. How could I verify what I'd agreed to when I couldn't see? The accusation of document tampering added another layer to his victimhood. My best friend's mother admitted she needed Dad's signature for the homeschool co-op to continue. Without his approval as board member, 15 families would lose their educational option. She couldn't risk speaking against him, even though she'd noticed our family's oddities. Proving Dad had rearranged furniture to hurt us sounded paranoid to investigators. They visited our house and saw a normal layout. My claims